I haven't met a 200 speed film that lives up to 200. Is Arista EDU 200 going to change my mind? I wanted to do some more film comparisons to Tri-X like I began earlier in the year. But to keep things consistent, rather than do them every now and then, I went ahead and got 49 different film stocks, everything I could get in 35mm from B&H and Freestyle. So unless they were out of stock, I got a roll of it. Now, if this part of the video seems familiar, it's because I'm using this portion of the video for all 49 of them rather than record it 49 times. So if you want to skip ahead to the H&D curves or the prints, time codes are right over here. For those of you that haven't seen this part of the video before, here's what I've done. So I wanted to use each film with the exact same shot, which is a headshot of me with a Kodak Gray Card Plus, which happens to have a red, blue, and green patch, a cyan, magenta, yellow patch, and then a dark and a neutral flesh tone. Then, with those shots taken, I bracketed every shot in third of a stop so that we can make sure we have a negative of equal shadow density to the base target film of Tri-X. Now, the reason I use Tri-X is because it's just been around for a long time and it's a very popular film. So it's a good base film to compare everything to. Then, once everything was developed, which was developed in D-76 at stock for the manufacturer's recommended time, I printed everything on Ilford using the exact same aperture, contrast settings, developer, and everything. The only thing I changed was my exposure time, and that was to make sure that I compensated for any base fog variation from one film stock to another. Other than that, everything was left the same so that we can have a comparison of just the qualities of the film. Now, there's going to be some differences in contrast, especially on the high end, and that's because the manufacturers getting their development time may not have used the same target that Kodak used for Tri-X. And that's okay. We're not looking at the overall contrast for everything. What we're really looking at is grain characteristics, tonality, how the film treats the shadows versus the highlights, that sort of thing. And we're looking at spectral sensitivity, thus the Gray Card Plus, rather than just a regular Gray Card. So we're going to go ahead and look at H&D curves, which if you saw one of my earlier videos on sensitometry, I like to use pen and paper and make my graphs. However, my wife was really ready to make sure I was done with this project. So she put everything into a spreadsheet for you all. So even though I don't like them, I want to show them to you thanks to her. Then we're going to go ahead and look at the prints side by side with the same print made from Tri-X. And from there, you can decide if you like the film and if you want to go and use it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the curves, and then we'll go to the prints. Here we have Tri-X in blue, Arista 200 in red. Now, unlike Arista 100, here we have a pretty good straight line. In the 100, we had this long, graceful arc that ended up in a flattening shoulder. Here we have a really good straight line with no shouldering at all. We do, however, have a very slow, graceful toe. Now, we've seen this before. This tends to show just a typical low value separation, or rather a poor low value separation, but the rest of the values are going to separate pretty much as expected, especially with such a good straight line portion. So very good, at least graphed performance by Arista 200. But let's go ahead and look at the prints and see what the differences actually look like. Okay, looking at our Tri-X here and our Arista 200 here. So first impression, it's a little flat. That, again, is just modifying our developing time. So the recommended time for the 200 Arista speed, or Arista 200 speed, if you want proper grammar there, It's just a little short, so I would lengthen that if I were to use this combination more. However, it is actually shot at 200, so we are getting a true 200 speed film. That's fantastic. Some of our other 200 speed films we've seen or will see, depending on when I release these, aren't exactly 200. A lot of them are actually lower. But we're also getting a really good spectral response here. So we're nice and even all the way down our left column and our right column. Just maybe a touch darker in the cyan, but technically, I'd say we probably are on the Tri-X as well. So we're getting a nice even response for both films, very much one like the other. There's nothing really pressing to note on the wide view here other than that. We seem to be getting a fairly good even response and a very similar response. So let's go ahead and zoom in and check out some of the particulars, the detail, and the grain. Looking at the shaded side of my face, obviously it's a little dull since we do have a lower development time than we should have. So our highlights didn't quite get up where we want them. But looking at the grain structure of the background, we can see for a 200 speed film, it's relatively large compared to Tri-X. In fact, it looks to be about the same as Tri-X. That would mean either it's just a very traditional emulsion and it's standard for a 200, and Tri-X probably has some sensitizing dyes to make a faster emulsion speed with a smaller grain, or it's just a really large grain film. I think it's probably more the former than the latter. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the first shoulder shot. All right, here on our shaded shoulder, we can see that grain structure a little bit clearer against the silhouette of my shoulder. We are having good transition from dark to medium tones down in the folds of the shirt. Again, though, it is just a little dull. So longer development time in the future if I use this combo again. Here on the second shoulder, we are getting nice sharp detail, nice sharp grain. So I don't know what order I'm going to release these. I'm going to assume this is coming after Arista 100. So this comment should make sense. If somehow I get mixed up and release this before, then spoiler alert. The Arista 100 just seemed to have very, very soft detail no matter what. The focus was on with the camera, but the detail just did not quite get as sharp and crisp. This does not seem to have that problem. We are getting very nice crisp detail. The texture of the shirt comes through very nicely. I can see the threads down the shoulder seam of my shirt, nice and clear. So this is sort of the behavior I would expect from a film. It's a shame the 100 didn't seem to have that, but it was pretty slight. We were zoomed in pretty high on a 35mm frame, so medium and large format would probably never even be able to tell. Here with the 200, however, it's sweet. It's exactly where I would expect it to be and want it to be. All right, let's go ahead and look at the last section. All right, here we are seeing nice texture in the skin. Pores and hairs are standing out exactly like I would anticipate. The detail is coming through with the highlights. The separation of tones, it's there. We can definitely see it with the highlight glare off of my nose and forehead. It would just be a little bit brighter if we had developed a little bit longer. So here we're probably starting to reach the shoulder of the film, which is why the shorter time dulled off so fast. But we could stretch that a little bit with just a longer time. So overall, great performance. Just a little tweaking on the development time to get it perfect. But I think this film had outstanding performance. I think side by side with Tri-X, if you were able to match the highlight density, with both films, I think side by side, you would not be able to tell a difference between the two. You're just going to be sacrificing a stop of speed shooting this film over Tri-X. So overall, great performance. All right, that's going to do it for this time. If you want to help support this channel, I've got merchandise available down in the link below. And I appreciate you all watching. We'll see you next time.